You're 45. You have $550 million and nobody knows. Not your neighbors, not your barber, not the guy at the lumber yard who's cut your wood to size for 6 years and still calls you buddy instead of your name. The number didn't arrive with a phone call or a toast. It arrived in an email from your accountant on a Wednesday. Subject line Q2 summary, final. While you were standing in your garage trying to remember which drill bit fit a 3/8-inch anchor. You read it twice. You set the phone down on the workbench. You finish the shelf you were building. It started 19 years ago with a warehouse nobody wanted. You were 26, working logistics for a regional shipping company, and you noticed the same thing every week. Small businesses paying absurd markups to store inventory in spaces that were half empty most of the year. You didn't have a plan. You had $14,000 in savings and a hunch. You leased a 12,000 square foot warehouse on the edge of an industrial park, the kind of building with one working loading dock and a roof that needed patching within the first year, and you started renting out sections of it by the pallet. Not glamorous, not even interesting really. Just a guy with a clipboard walking businesses through empty square footage. The first year you cleared $9,000 after the lease and the roof repair. Your roommate at the time made more than that bartending. You didn't quit your job. You didn't tell anyone what you were doing on weekends. You just kept walking the warehouse, kept filling sections, kept noticing which businesses needed cold storage and which just needed dry shelving and a lock. By year 4, you'd leased 2 more warehouses in different parts of the state, both modest, both unremarkable from the outside. You'd started buying, not just leasing, once you understood which buildings held their value and which ones were dying assets dressed up as bargains. You bought your first building outright at 31, a half-vacant distribution center, for $680,000, financed mostly through a loan and the cash flow you'd built quietly over 5 years. Nobody at your day job knew. You still drove the same Civic. You still packed the same lunch. Your accountant's name is Renata. She's handled small business books for over 20 years and doesn't impress easily. The first time she saw your full portfolio laid out 11 years ago, she went quiet for almost a full minute. Then she said, "This is the most boring use of $40 million I've ever seen." She meant it as an observation, not quite a criticism. You took it as exactly what you'd been building toward. Not a brand, not a story anyone would write about. Just warehouses, distribution space, and industrial land scattered across 3 states, each one solving the same unglamorous problem. Businesses need somewhere to put things, and that need does not go away in a recession, does not get disrupted by an app, does not care what the stock market does on a Tuesday. Today, the portfolio includes 14 warehouse and distribution properties, combined net income north of $30 million a year after debt service and maintenance. A logistics consulting arm you built almost by accident, helping smaller operators optimize their own storage, that quietly pulls in another $4 million annually. A handful of industrial land parcels you bought during downturns when nobody else wanted exposure to commercial real estate, now worth multiples of what you paid. None of it photographs well. None of it would make an interesting slide in anyone's pitch deck. That's the point. There's a man named Trent at the gym you go to 3 mornings a week. He drives a Lamborghini Urus, talks about his portfolio loudly enough for the whole locker room to hear, and once asked what you do for work. You told him you handle logistics for a few companies. True, technically. He nodded, decided you were unremarkable, and went back to describing his Urus's horsepower to someone else. That dismissal is worth more to you than anything he could have said next. The moment someone files you under ordinary is the moment they stop watching what you do with your time, and that's the entire architecture of how you live. Your younger brother Caleb called you 8 months ago. He'd been trying to expand his small HVAC business for 2 years. Good reputation, steady client base, needed $140,000 to buy out his business partner and take over fully. You could have sent it without feeling it, less than 2 days of cash flow across the portfolio. You didn't. You asked to see his numbers first, the way you've learned to with everything. You found his pricing was underselling his labor by almost 20%, found a vendor contract that was quietly bleeding him on materials, and spent 4 Saturdays walking through his books with him instead of writing a check. He restructured his pricing, renegotiated the vendor deal, and found a regional small business loan that covered the buyout without your money touching any of it. He called you the night the paperwork closed, said he couldn't have done it without you. You never told him what you could have wired in 60 seconds. That's not modesty. It's understanding that his business needed to be his, built by his decisions, not your money. There's a specific weight to that kind of restraint. Watching someone you love struggle through something you could remove instantly, and knowing that removing it would cost them more than it would save them. You've made peace with most of it. Some nights it still costs something different. Your house is a 4-bedroom colonial in a quiet suburb, bought 15 years ago, mortgage paid off for the last 6. The neighbors think you do something with logistics, and leave it there. They're not wrong. They're just several zeros short. Your truck is a 2017 F-150 with 110,000 miles and a dent in the bedliner you've never fixed. You paid cash for it. The average new vehicle payment in the country right now sits north of $700 a month. Every dollar you're not sending to a finance company goes somewhere that compounds instead, quietly, automatically, the same way it has for almost 2 decades. What you've learned slowly is that visibility costs something money can't buy back. The moment people know what you actually have, the conversations change. Requests appear. Distant cousins find reasons to call. People start relating to your number instead of to you. You watched it happen to a friend years ago, someone who got loud about a much smaller windfall, and watched how fast the room's temperature changed around him. So you keep things plain. The truck, the lumberyard small talk, the gym where Trent talks about his Urus, and you talk about almost nothing. It costs you nothing to maintain and buys you the ability to move through your own life without being treated as a target. The email came on a Wednesday. You were in the garage, drill in hand, half a shelf built, when the notification lit up your phone. Q2, summary, final. You read the number once, then again, slower, the way you read something when you're not sure you saw it correctly. $550 million verified across the warehouses, the consulting arm, the land, the accounts Renata manages with the same unimpressed precision she's used for 11 years. You stood there for a moment. The garage smelled like sawdust. A car alarm went off 2 houses down and stopped. Nobody knew. The shelf didn't know. The drill didn't know. You finished the shelf. You leveled it, drove the last screw, and stepped back to check that it sat straight. The same way you would have checked it the day before you knew the number, the same way you'll check the next one. You're 45. You have $550 million. Tomorrow you're meeting the lumberyard guy again to cut boards for a second shelf, and he's going to call you buddy, and you're going to let him, because that's the whole architecture of the thing. Not hiding because you're ashamed of what you have, but staying ordinary on purpose, because ordinary is the only thing that's ever let you keep it.